hello, Johnny. You are up next.
Hey Bart, how are you?
You're actually also playing in a private game. Is that right?
Yes, it is. There's not that many big games where I play. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada, and most of the casinos only play up to 2-5, and there's a few like 5-10 games but most of them are held privately. But this one's actually 5-10-20, and it's I one of the guys at the casino kind of invited me to come, and so it's my second or third time playing this game.
So, all right. So you're playing a private 5-10 plus 20 game, and what are the effective stacks here?
He's the effective stack at around 13,000.
Wow.
This is the biggest hand of like a stack I've ever had, biggest hand or like dollar amount I've ever sat at the table because haven't really played much out of the city.
So let me ask you this question before we get into the hand. The hand itself is interesting too, but this is, with Chauncey Billups in the news with these private poker games. I talked about this in my podcast like a few weeks ago. I mean, there's one thing about, running a poker game where you're taking a rake, but the game is straight. And there's another thing about cheating people out of, using the Deckmaster 2s or whatever he's accused of doing or cheating people. That's an entirely different thing. But I always avoided these types of private games with this type of money because my gut reaction when you tell me this setup right here is I'm assuming you didn't bring cash to this game. And unless it's a bunch of guys who are friends with each other where there's not taking a rake, this is a quote unquote like professional game where probably credit's going to be extended. And then if credit's going to be extended, usually the way that the host tries to like make an excuse or overcome for the credit that's going to be extended is that the rake is just absurdly high. And I kind of figured out that there's all these intangibles that I just don't want to be a part of this. I don't know if that's the setup here. Plus, if you're a winning player too, you get paid last. So
this was kind of like a week after I heard about all the Chauncey Billups stuff. So it was kind of sketched out, but the guy I got invited from, he's a reg at the actual casino, and he vouched for the game. Obviously, I should still have some concerns. There's actually a content creator that plays at the game. I'm not sure if he wants to be named. So
he was the
kind of like intrigued me.
You know what's funny about that? If anybody,
not the host actually.
No, I know, but if anybody knows the story, because they were making up some terms that no one ever used, like the Chauncey Billups, they were calling, these professional sports guys were the face cards. They were the people that were drawing people in, and then these people get cheated. So this vlogger. The other thing too, I remember a story is like, if you ever get invited from somebody from the casino to a private game, and then you see some people in the game that are like playing like 5 or 10 times as high, like higher than they normally play. Like you see guys that are like 1, 2, and 2-5 players that usually have 800 in front of them, then all of a sudden have 10,000 in front of them. Run. I know a guy that got ripped off that way. Just be careful out there. I know that's not necessarily the point, but okay. So 5-10 plus 20, 13,000 effective. Okay.
Yeah. So right before this hand, I want to like a flip for like 6,000-ish, so 3,000 effective short stack, kind of short-ish stack, and then it was kind of a bounty game. So he shoved, I called off with Ace King of Diamonds, and I doubled up. So I just came off a win, and I'm actually going for the second button, which might play a effect in my image. But anyways, I've opened Ace King offsuit again in back-to-back hands, and I in the straddle. And then the under the gun one opens to 225.
Wait a minute.
And then the +2 call.
Wait a minute. So you're in the straddle. So +1 makes it 225, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then what happens?
And then +2 calls.
Okay. +2 calls.
And then there was one more call before it comes back to me.
Okay.
And obviously I have Ace King, and so I raised to 1250, especially in the straddle.
Okay.
And then
so you 3-bet to 1250. So 225 plus 2 calls, cutoff calls, you squeeze to 1250, which is probably like 4x plus the dead caller. And then what? Just +1 calls? Okay.
Yeah, only +1 calls.
+1 calls only. So your head's up. So it's 2,500 plus a little bit extra dead money. It's probably close to 3,000 in the pot, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I have it down
Okay.
as.
All right. Let's go to the flop.
So the flop comes 2 kings and a 4. There's a flush draw of diamonds. I think King of clubs, King of diamonds, and 4 of diamonds.
Okay.
So I flop kind of the nuts, basically.
Well, you've got a very strong hand. You don't have the ace of diamonds by chance, do you?
I do. I have the ace of diamonds and the king of hearts.
Ace of diamonds, king of hearts. Wow. Okay. So that's a pretty big flop. And the reason why I ask just about that is just because, you think about what is a range. that +1 open from early position and then calling your big squeeze, not big squeeze, but you squeeze. See, the straddle squeeze here is kind of polar, but like sort of, I would say it really leans towards value because you can call pre-flop with a lot of your in-between hands that you wouldn't want to call with, like in the field, because you could get squeezed. You're closing the action. So when you come out and 3-bet pre, that's usually a pretty strong hand. The fact that he calls your 2-12-25 with guys behind him and doesn't 4-bet, he should have a strong hand. Now, he probably shouldn't have like kings or aces, but he should have a pretty strong hand where he's not messing around. You've got the ace of diamonds here.
He can't have kings because there's no more.
No. Well, it's not possible to have kings, but you've got the ace of diamonds, which means he can't have something like ace queen of diamonds or ace jack of diamonds. So, yeah, I mean, what other king can he have? I mean, I suppose he can have ace king. He could have king queen suited. I'm just talking about reasonable. I don't know if I even call with king jack suited in this spot with people behind me after you 3-bet pre. So, yeah, you've got a hammer lock on this hand. With that being said, I mean, I would tend to probably go, kind of as a rangy 1/3-ish type of bet where you're just going to force a lot of pairs to call anyways on king 4. Like if you bet 700.
I actually went half pot, so around 1,500.
The only issue, the only thing I would say about that is just if you go 1,500, I mean, you still might get the calls, I suppose, from like, say, like 8s plus, but you might not get super, super light, sort of like ace high or like backdoor Broadway types of calls here. So, all right, so you go 1,500.
Yeah, and he's like a more splashy player. I think he would be there in with like queen jack, queen 10 suited, probably jack 10 suited as well. And yeah, and any pair I think he would have called pre-flop as well.
Okay. So does he call again?
He thinks for a couple seconds and then just throws in a call.
All right. So +1 calls. So now we are at $6,000. And of course, if anybody's watching this is not familiar with Crush Live Poker, I mean, we commonly talk about this. I always go over like all my videos. I mean, I've actually gotten pretty torched on Hustler Casino Live the last times that I've talked about this, but I will get into spots like this for a lot of money. And we've got an entire catalog of videos discussing spots like this. Right now, we're doing our Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. It's 30% off of all plan levels. You can click on the link in the description to get more information on that. Plus, if you get the yearly subscription, we're actually giving away a 3-month subscription to Left Pocket, which is a poker tracker type bankroll app. And of course, Fast Roll, which is like a live hand logger, which will get you on this show quicker. So we're at 6,000, king 4. Okay, what's the turn?
Turn comes the 9 of hearts. Yeah, so it was mostly a brick. And I start with a check.
All right, let's talk about that. So this is an interesting little spot. So I would say it's actually, man, it's kind of close. Like this is a much different spot, I think, than if you had bet 700 or 600 on the flop. And the reason why I say that is because if you bet 600 or 700 on the flop, you could make a case where your opponent is going to have a bunch of medium strength hands where you're only really going to be able to get 2 streets from it anyways. And your opponent might actually have some bluffs that he's going to need to start bluffing with if you bet 600 or 700 on the flop. We always talk about that being a very, very important part of hand reading is how big you bet on the flop. Since you kind of took a larger sizing on the flop now, I don't know if he has those types of hands that need to start bluffing, especially when you have the ace of diamonds in your hand. So if I were to take out that portion of his range where he doesn't really have a whole lot of floats now, and it's mostly medium strength hands and a king, you could make a case and say, well, I can go for a check raise and try to cooler like king queen will bet. That's true. But I kind of would rather in this spot take a handcuffing bet sizing on this turn rather than check if you use the flop sizing that you used. If you had used the 700, 800 flop sizing, I think you can check the turn sometimes. But do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, so basically you're saying like any hand that's good enough to call will kind of continue to call, right?
Well, it's not necessarily that it will continue. Well, if you use the correct sizing, I am saying that if you use a handcuffing sizing, but I'm also saying that because you bet so large on the flop, there's not a whole lot of value in checking turn to get hands that quote unquote need to start bluffing now, because there aren't many hands that need to start bluffing now because you bet so large on the flop.
Right. Okay. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
All right, but you check. Here are checks.
Yeah, and then he actually does the betting for, so he bets out for 2,500.
2,500. All right, so +1. Wow, that is. Now, the thing you got to think about here, though, Johnny, is that you lose to pocket nines, right? You've got three full combos of pocket nines that you might lose to now, right? I mean, that hand makes a lot of sense because that's going to be a hand that's probably going to play like this 100% of the time. Open, call flop, and now boats up on turn. And again, when you look at, I don't know how tight this guy plays. Here's the thing about this. If you believe what I said in the sense that, so if this guy doesn't like play it like super wide and like raise with like king, queen off and call a 3-bet, I mean, it is a private game, but just kind of follow along with me. If the only non-ace king hand that he can have here with a king in it is king, queen suited, and you have a king in your hand, there's only one specific hand that's king, queen suited that he can have. Now, there are 3 combos of pocket nines, and then what else are you left with? The other ace king. How many other ace kings are there? Well, there's 1 king left in the deck. You have one of the aces, so 3 aces times 1. So there's 3 ace kings left, 1 king, queen suited left. Obviously, king, queen suited, you're beating, and 3 combos of pocket nines. So you can look at this like you might actually, now, if he plays king jack, that's another one. I'm taking out pocket 4s. And again, it's just like one of these situations where you bet so large on the flop. I just don't know. I'm not saying I'm going to fold. I'm not saying anything like that. But if you're thinking about doing something like check raising here, I don't know. I might think twice about that.
Yeah, originally I was definitely thinking about it because I think he would be splashy enough to be in there with the like queen jack and queen 10 suited or jack 10 suited, which adds a gut shot. But I don't know if he would lead that, right?
Now, with that being said, I will acknowledge people in the chat saying if you call, the pot's going to be 11,000 and you guys are going to have like 7 left. So you can take what I said with a grain of salt because of the stack sizes. It's pretty close, but I just want you to think about what I'm talking about, like in deeper stack play. Like if you had a lot of money behind here, this is a pretty extreme scenario where I might not thinking about check raising because of the stack sizes. I suppose you could just make a case where you could just check raise, get it in. If you didn't have the ace of diamonds here, I actually would like it more as a check call and maybe like crying check call here, trying to look like your hand might be aces or queens or something like that. And then the guy's got some nut flush draws that he wants to bluff at the end. The issue here is that you have the ace of diamonds. So, it's not like you can take a raise sizing that's probably not all in, right? If you decide to raise here on the turn.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about a raise, but I just continued with the call.
Okay, so hero calls. Okay. So now 5,000, the pot's 11,000, and you guys have put in 4, 5. You've got what, maybe 7,500 to 8,000 left, something like that, maybe in your stack.
Yeah, I think I have a little more, but yeah, he's the effective stack, so he has around 7,500 left.
7,500, 8,000.
7,500.
Yeah. Yes. King, 4, 9. Okay.
Yeah, and the river is like probably the actual worst card in the deck. It comes the Queen of Diamonds.
Oh God. So the Queen of Diamonds rolls off here. So the final board is King of Clubs, King of Diamonds, 4 of Diamonds, 9 of Hearts, and now the river is the Queen of Diamonds. So now you lose the King, Queen. And then somehow if he had a diamond draw, I mean, the thing about the thing why I find it really, again, I don't know how wide this guy is. I mean, I keep saying that. I haven't really asked you if he's an action player. But you have the ace of diamonds in your hand. The king of diamonds is out there, and the queen of diamonds is now out there. So really, like, what flushes can he have? Jack 10 of diamonds, like, only? Does he even call with that? Because if you open, like, from +1 with Jack 10 of diamonds, and then you've got call, and then somebody in the straddle, like, squeezes, and you don't really love to take that hand as a call there. It's obviously a call heads up pre, but you don't like to be in the middle there. So, I mean, a lot of guys will, but I'm just saying that it doesn't really look, and you certainly wouldn't want to take a low suited connector here. So he really shouldn't have really any flushes here. Maybe once in a while, like a Jack 10 of diamonds. Maybe. Yeah, I think he is definitely wide enough to be in there.
Yeah, but another note was like he was down like 25,000 already on the day. So I think he would be a little wider than he would an average player would be.
Okay. Well, I mean, if he's wide, well, that could all, well, I think that that's bad for you actually, because if he's wider, what that means to me is that he might even have some king queen off here and some other diamonds that he shouldn't have. And then maybe he like opens and calls with like pocket fours too. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of these. I mean, I'm going to check and I'm going to pray that it somehow goes check, check here.
I was wondering, yeah, he could maybe somehow he ends up with queens, but like, for whatever reason, if he led the turn. But I think here's where I make the biggest mistake. I actually lead the river for 4,100 ish.
Why?
I'm not sure in the moment, but decided to lead thinking I have like the ace of diamonds, and somehow he just has a worse king. But yeah, like looking back, I think it's a complete mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing, man. I mean, we already talked about how it's so unlikely for him to have a worse king. Well, remember, king queen you lose to now, right? So you're talking about like king jack. I mean, did you think you were trying to turn when you first emailed this in and I looked at this and I was like, oh boy, I was like, did you just sort of freeze and like, did you think you were turning your hand into a bluff? Like you have such an in-between candidate in this. Well, as we've talked about going down the line, you very well might check fold at the end if you were to shove. But a lot of times here, like you've got such a candidate here where it's too strong to turn into a bluff. Like what you got to sort of, even in the heat of the moment, you might be playing, really bigger than you ever had in your life, or it's the most amount of money. You take a step back, you take a couple breaths and you're like, well, why am I betting? What are the reasons here to bet? And by the way, on the river, one of the reasons that we think about, there's for the most part, like you could call it 3 or 4 reasons to bet. The main reasons to bet, right, that we always know about is 1 for value, right, to get called by worse. 2 as a bluff, which means to get some hand that's better than ours to fold. There's 3 minor for equity protection and then sort of like range bets. But on the river, 3 and 4 go out the door. There is no equity protection and there are no river range bets. So you really are just looking at, am I betting for value here or am I betting as a bluff? And if it's in between, then you're probably doing something wrong, right?
Yeah, I think I definitely did something wrong. I kind of actually meant it as like a block sizing because I did not want
It's
to.
a big block sizing, though. It's a really big block sizing.
Yeah, so like I think if I even if a block is wrong, I think yeah, like my block should have been like 2,000, but I just kind of yeah, like I'm playing above my average stake, so I just went for that siding just because it was like 20% of the pot ish. So
I mean, here's the thing. First of all, the guy that you're playing against here, do you play with him at the casino that you normally play at? Or is he totally unknown to you?
I've seen him at the actual casino, but he's pretty whaley. Like I've seen him like
Does he play at like 2-5? Like that's the biggest game you said
yeah,
runs.
he does play at 2-5. He plays at the biggest games that run.
I don't like this whole forget about I'm telling you, Johnny, forget about the hand itself. I don't like this setup. I don't like the fact that you're seeing guys at the casino who play 2-5 playing this game. I'm telling you, if you want my advice, stay away from this game. No offense to the runner, or maybe you've got some sort of, intimate relationship, but I'm telling you nothing. Hey, I've been around this industry for 20 years and I've seen a lot. This might be one of the most important things you take away from this call. I don't like the setup. Now, well, what I was going to say is like, if you can sort of take this in with that grain, like take that advice in, and we've heard about like how some weird shit can go on like in home games and stuff like that. You almost like if I were to put myself in a situation where there's even the slightest possibility of some sort of impropriety, I'm not saying it's going on here. You almost have to overfold in certain types of situations too. Because when somebody puts like, and I've heard of situations where people have folded enormous hands in home games because they almost figured out that they were cheating. Like hands where like they had top full house and there was a straight flush out there and they're like, oh my God, like they realized it like in the middle of the hand. The reason why I'm saying that is that like, yeah, if you're going to get shoved on here, there's just, I hope you don't get shoved on and I hope you don't call. I don't even remember what happens, but for what it's worth though, I think the river just in a straight up game is a check and you hope the guy checks behind.
Yeah, just on kind of a note to the beginning is that yeah, we don't have a game bigger than 2-5, so it's kind of hard to gauge what stakes this guy usually plays at. But I've also did some due diligence, like kind of pre-game, just kind of introducing myself, and he was like a pretty well-known business guy, like he's like in the real estate.
Okay.
So yeah, with all I understand everything you said,
You're
but
doubtful that there's anything. I'm just telling you. Yeah. I'm just telling. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a guy that might be working with somebody. I'm just saying. So, all right. So you lead for 4,500. I think it's going to be a check. People are saying, could you ever make a case for
yeah,
blocking?
I made the mistake, and then he instantly shoves for 3,500 more.
So he shoves for 8,000, right?
After the count, it was 3,500 more.
All right. So you bet 4,500, and he makes it 8,000 total. So it's 15. So it's 23,500. 3,500 for you to call. I mean, you're getting like an insane pot odds of like 6 or 7 to 1. But even if you hold the ace of diamonds here, meaning that like once in a great while, somebody could maybe shove on you with ace king with the ace of diamonds, but you have the ace of diamonds. So he's got to, if he ever had like the other ace king somehow, he's got to be concerned about you having king queen. He's got to be concerned about you having the nut flush. So yeah, this is the issue with sometimes betting this amount. I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, fuck, 23,000. Am I just going to fold this hand? And believe me, I've been there before, but this is the issue with the bet. What did you end up doing here?
Yeah, I tanked for like 5 minutes, and it was a slight factor that I had the ace of diamonds, but in the end, it's just more of like pot odds. Like I did not want to get bluffed off for like 9 to 1 in my biggest pot of my life, so I did throw in the call.
All right, hero calls and
And he had ace king suited, which ended up in a chop.
wow, he had ace king suited and he raised the river on you? Wow,
He
that is
did.
shocking. I'm going to put ace king of spades. That is really, really shocking for the reasons that I just stated actually before, which is like that's a really bad play by him, right? It's a really bad play by him because your hand almost looks like you might have queen queen here a lot too. Because of, I mean, it's just you bet kind of big on the flop for that. But I mean, that's another hand that he doesn't beat. And then maybe once in a while, like you might have 9-9 here too, as played, like some slow plays. But that is very, very surprising. But it's an interesting call. I appreciate you calling it in. Thank you very much.